Hello everyone, welcome to Diplomatic Briefing. In the US-China tariff war, Trump not only failed to gain the upper hand, but Western media even believes that the US has been caught by China's fatal weakness, its dependence on key mineral supplies. Trump and his team shifted their focus to bullying their smaller allies, while also putting pressure on Africa in an attempt to curb the spread of China's influence. But recently, there have been reports that they are facing resistance again. According to reports from Kenyan local media, the US recently threatened to review and revoke Kenya's status as a major non-NATO ally, as a way to express its dissatisfaction with President Ruto's earlier praise of China's role in the New World Order. According to the report, last week, the chairman of the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Risch, proposed an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act for the 2026 fiscal year, aiming to reassess Kenya's status as a major non-NATO ally. This review will be conducted by U.S. Secretary of State Rubio within 90 days, and will require a detailed account of Kenya's military, political, and financial interactions with China. The results of the review will provide the basis for Congress to decide whether Kenya should retain this status. In 2024, the U.S. granted Kenya the status of a major non-NATO ally, allowing it to enjoy a range of military and economic benefits, including access to U.S. defense contracts and joint training opportunities. This move is seen as part of the U.S. strategy to counter the influence of China and Russia in Africa. Now, the U.S. is expressing its dissatisfaction with Kenya's increasingly close relationship with China for this very reason. Kenya is an important participant in the Belt and Road Initiative in Africa and a beneficiary of the initiative. China has provided financing for Kenya's infrastructure projects, ranging from railways to highways. According to data from the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in 2024, the total trade volume between China and Kenya was $8.82 billion. Of this, China imported $240 million from Kenya, while its exports to Kenya amounted to $8.58 billion. In April this year, President Ruto paid a state visit to China. During the visit, China and Kenya signed landmark infrastructure and trade agreements, and the bilateral relationship between the two countries was elevated to a new era of a China-Kenya community with a shared future. Ruto publicly praised China's position in the New World Order, calling China and Kenya co-creators of this New World Order. According to the South China Morning Post, Ruto's remarks angered the United States, as they were seen as a direct challenge to the US-led global system. This prompted infuriated American politicians to take action against Kenya, threatening to review and revoke Kenya's status as a major non-NATO ally. On August 6, at a high-level roundtable meeting with business leaders, Ruto strongly defended the deepening trade relationship between China and Kenya. He stated that China had agreed to a reciprocal agreement with Kenya, agreeing to remove tariffs on Kenyan exports of tea, coffee, avocados, and all other agricultural products. Ruto said, "I think this is a major breakthrough for us. The Chinese side opening up their market to our agricultural products is a good thing for Kenya." Ruto spoke candidly about Kenya's diplomatic friction with the United States, saying, "This is also part of the reason why I've had some issues with certain friends. But for the sake of Kenya, I have to do this. This is in Kenya's best interest." Kenya's Trade Minister, Rebecca Miano, who attended the meeting, also said that the trade agreement between China and Kenya is a milestone achievement. He explained that before reaching the new agreement with China, Kenya's exports to China faced a 10% tariff, while some of Kenya's less developed neighboring countries had zero tariffs on their exports to China, which led importers to reroute products through Kenya's neighbors. He said that China is a market of 1.4 billion people, so even if only 1% of Kenya's tea and coffee enters this market, it would completely change the lives of Kenyans. In recent years, in order to counter China's influence in Africa, the United States has adopted strategies from multiple angles, increasing pressure on African countries in hopes of gaining greater support in international affairs. American media have pointed out that Africa has already become the central testing ground for the competition for influence between the two major economies, China and the United States. Earlier this year, the Wall Street Journal reported that U.S. officials plan to negotiate with more than 70 countries to restrict their interactions with China. These measures are aimed at further weakening China's economy and reducing China's leverage at the negotiating table. Several African scholars have stated that the U.S. threats have put Kenya in a very difficult diplomatic position. However, they also pointed out that China's move to remove tariffs stands in stark contrast to the Trump administration's decision to impose a 10% tariff on Kenyan goods. The U.S. wielding the tariff stick will only further push Kenya and other African countries to expand their economic ties with China. In conclusion, Trump's overt and aggressive pressure on Africa will only make African countries back off. Even in the Biden era, when the U.S. extends an olive branch to African countries to talk about cooperation, these countries still want to see if the U.S. is willing to put real money on the table. So, tough bullying tactics will only force Africa to fully lean towards China. Take Kenya as an example. When their current president, Ruto, first took office, he once tried to reverse the pro-China stance of several previous administrations and bought into Biden's approach. However, not only did the U.S. fail to provide any real support for Kenya's development, but cooperation with China was also hindered, causing Kenya to miss out on the great opportunity to ride the wave of the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, facing Trump-style bullying, Ruto is finding himself in an even tougher predicament. Apart from Turkey, there's also a negative example among Global South countries, Iran. In October 2015, China and Iran had already signed a memorandum of understanding, allowing Iran to use the Beidou system for positioning, navigation, and related testing equipment. However, the political forces within Iran have been wavering between pro-American and anti-American stances, wasting a whole decade without truly making good use of Beidou. It was only after being humiliated by recent attacks from the US and Israel that Iran finally woke up. According to Al Jazeera and other Middle Eastern media, during the 12-day conflict in June this year, Iran and its surrounding waters experienced multiple GPS signal interruptions, exposing the weakness of Iran's reliance on US-controlled infrastructure. Israel's assassination of several Iranian nuclear scientists and senior military commanders has also raised concerns about the infiltration of Iran's telecommunications systems. Last month, Iran's Deputy Minister of Communications and Information Technology, Shitzaz, confirmed in an interview with Iranian compatriots that during the recent conflict, Iran had also deliberately interfered with GPS signals in an attempt to disrupt drones or missiles. However, technical data shows that these measures have failed to effectively enhance Iran's national security, and have instead affected millions of internet users and thousands of businesses. Shitzaz said that Iran is preparing to seek alternative options, such as China's Beidou system, which has already been brought up in ongoing discussions between Iran and China. According to foreign media reports, Iran is formulating a plan to migrate its positioning services and is exploring the adoption of China's Beidou satellite navigation system. Analysts believe that this will further expand China's technological influence in the Middle East. This shift by Iran comes at a time when the country has suffered significant losses in its conflict with Israel, with its military and nuclear facilities being severely damaged. Akbar Darilai, a researcher at the Strategic Research Center of an Iranian think tank, said that Iran's turn to Beidou stems from its painful experiences relying on Western technology. He described it as a genuine Iranian strategic decision with long-term implications. Darilai said that as early as June, during the 12-day war launched against Iran by Israel and the United States, there were reports that Iran experienced GPS signal disruptions. These painful experiences may have forced Iran to seek alternatives to GPS more quickly. Lancini, a lecturer at Sciences Po Grenoble in France, pointed out that Iran is trying to fill these defense gaps. Iranian policymakers are currently studying the flaws in their defense systems, as well as how US and Israeli intelligence agencies have managed to infiltrate these systems. Fadra, a professor at Nablus Oriental University and adjunct professor at the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies in Europe, stated that Iran's decisions will further expand China's influence in the Middle East. He added that this trend seems to indicate that the competition between Chinese and American technology in the Middle East is becoming increasingly fierce. Today, the Middle East appears to be turning into a new technological battleground, not through bases or bombs, but through satellites in cyberspace. Some analysts believe that Iran's shift to using the Beidou system may attract more countries in the region to deepen their cooperation with China. Some Gulf countries maintain close ties with the United States while also actively cooperating with China. For example, the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia have been purchasing Chinese military equipment and have welcomed high-tech industries from China, such as artificial intelligence and 5G. According to the 2025 China Satellite Navigation and Positioning Service Industry Development White Paper, Beidou-related services and products have already been exported to more than 140 countries and regions. As a core global satellite navigation system supplier recognized by the United Nations, the Beidou system has been fully integrated into the standard systems of 11 international organizations, including civil aviation, maritime, and mobile communications, further expanding its circle of international partners. Previously, some foreign media reported that the Beidou system is challenging the global positioning dominance of the US GPS system. In response, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning once said that China's technological innovation and industrial development have never targeted anyone, and that Beidou belongs not only to China, but to the world. China will continue to uphold openness and cooperation, mutual benefit and win-win outcomes, and work with other countries to ensure that more advanced technological achievements serve and benefit the people. To sum up simply, first, sometimes your enemy is the best salesperson. The US military launched airstrikes on Iran, yet Iran is still using US-made GPS fundamentally. They've already lost. This lesson is the strongest driving force, and at the very least, they must abandon GPS in military applications. And Beidou is currently Iran's only option. Second, when it comes to China's relationship with countries in the global south, it can't just be about taking advantage whenever there's a benefit, or appearing pro-China on the surface while still pinning their hopes on the US in reality. Iran's fate will no doubt serve as a wake-up call for other countries in the global south as well. Third, you can't let your lifeline be controlled by others. GPS can be controlled and disrupted at any time, which is why, no matter how tough it is, China insists on developing its own Beidou navigation system.